Aloha! This is Jason from Hawaii. Welcome to a very special edition of the Comics for Fun and Profit podcast. In this episode, I will be interviewing a very special guest, comic book creator Ed Piskor. He is here to promote his comic Red Room. It's a 12-part limited series from Fantagraphics. A couple things is that first off, it's in black and white. And second, please note it is for mature readers. It's more for themes, language, and very graphic violence. Now, for Ed's history, he has done Deviant Funnies, Isolation Chamber in the early 2000s, Macedonia from Villard Books in 2007 with the late great Harvey Pekar, The Beats, a graphic history in 2009, again with the late great Harvey Pekar, Whizwig from Top Shelf 2012, Hip Hop Family Tree by, first off, on online Boing Boing in 2012 to 2015, and in print by Fantagraphics that was released in 2013, 2016. Now, this also won the 2015 Eisner Award. And of course, everybody knows he's done X-Men Grand Design by Marvel Comics, and that was released between 2017 to 2018. Now, Ed, feel free to correct me. Did I miss anything? Did I mispronounce anything?
Harvey Pekar is his name, but that's all good, man. You know what? We're recording this August 17th, 2021. Red Room is like the culmination of all of my kind of COVID lockdown time, like I spent all of 2020 working on that thing, and my life really didn't change very much in that year because I was preparing to just work on this comic as much as possible anyhow. Mm-hmm. The one thing that did change, and the one set of plans that did get upset, was I was supposed to be at the Maui Comic Festival, man, in October, and obviously that got cut short. So that's like the one thing I missed out on that like I'm really bummed out about, because I was going to just hang out on the islands for a while, go comic digging, and then from there fly to Japan for like a month.
Oh my God. Wait, you're supposed to go to Maui Comic-Con this year?
In 2020.
Oh, in 2020. Oh, okay.
Yeah. That was like the one piece that got upset in my 2020, career. We're going to try to make it happen again, as soon as possible. If not this year, next year, something like that. But yeah.
Oh my God. Okay. So, because I know the store owner, Alika Seki, Maui Comics and Collectibles. He's a great guy. He really is.
Yeah, he's our dude, man. Like he supplies us with all kinds of cool comics and stuff. He helped me complete my Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles collection, man.
Oh,
that's rare issues.
That's really nice. Oh my God. Sorry guys, I know we're going off the cuff here, but Ed, if you're ever in Maui Comic-Con, because I've never been there, I've always wanted to go. But if I hear that you're going, I'm definitely going to be there.
It'll be cool to shake your hand, man.
Oh, man. Oh.
What island are you on?
I'm on Oahu.
Cool.
The main island, yes.
Big.
Yeah, but I'm going to say, Maui, to do a convention, for your very first experience in the islands, to do a convention, Maui is the perfect place.
Is that so?
It to me it is, because then it's like you have more of the natural beauty and so forth. I know when comic book creators come to Hawaii for the first time, it's always on Oahu, because we have the Comic-Con Honolulu and Amazing Comic-Con here on Oahu. And comic book creators say, oh, they love this place, it's great and so forth. I'm going to say me personally, because it's like another major city on the mainland. It's all, everywhere you look, it's all, like tall buildings, hotels, and so forth. On Oahu, you would have to drive to the North Shore or out of the town area to sort of really capture the beauty of the islands. But Maui, I think for you to start off in Maui, that's perfect. It really is. Yeah.
The photos that I saw looked really cool. All that said, Jimmy J, the dude who runs Amazing Hawaii Con or whatever, Hey, man, invite us out there too. I wouldn't mind seeing the main island.
Yeah. So I'm just asking. So how do you know Jimmy J?
He knows that like I'm a big mark for Rob Liefeld, and he had a publishing company that he sort of had a stake in with Liefeld, Awesome Books or Awesome Entertainment or whatever.
Yes.
So he invited me and Tom Scioli down to like Amazing Houston Con or whatever, and he set me up right between. To the left of me was Herb Trimpe. To the right of me was Rob Liefeld,
God.
and it was like one of the raddest con experiences ever. In fact, it was so cool because I got to rap to Herb Trimpe for a while. Like he was sitting there just constantly on that grind, man, doing commissions,
Yes.
and got to express like all of my love for his work and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And he passed like 2 weeks later, man. He was no longer with us. Like 2 weeks later, he looked totally fine. We were discussing. He would run every morning, like go on jogs and stuff, and
Wow.
he was doing super well. But like, man,
Mm-hmm.
just came a calling, and we lost him. But I was so thankful because his work means a lot to me. Like I grew up reading the very few kind of constants in my life
Mm-hmm.
growing up were comic books
Yes.
and specific comic books. GI Joe would be one of them.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
X-Men, Batman comics, like the ones that were super popular that
Mm-hmm.
you would always find issues of in the grocery store. Like
Mm-hmm.
you might not find issues of, I don't know, Daredevil or
Yeah.
one of the lesser X titles, but those big ones you could always get your hands on, and those things were constants to me. And Herb Trimpe had some cool GI Joe comics,
Oh yeah.
and
Mm-hmm.
and there were like five. Like I told him like my five like Herb Trimpe loves, man, and like one of them, probably like my number one,
Yes.
is his, Rolling Stones magazine cover where he draws the Incredible Hulk, but he draws it in like his own natural style,
Uh-huh.
which is so different than the kind of rank and file Marvel House style where
Yes.
he's instructed to draw
Mm-hmm.
like Jack Kirby as best he can.
Mm-hmm.
And then he's that journeyman kind of guy. He's a carpenter. Like he whatever Marvel needs, like he'll sort of manipulate his style to give them what they want. And in the 60s 70s, it was that Kirby vibe. And
Yes.
then when I was growing up in the early 90s, man, everybody was trying to draw like Jim Lee,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
in a X-Men annual, he drew a Bishop story in like the Jim Lee style, and to my taste, he totally schooled all those dudes because he knows anatomy and he knows storytelling. He just had that varnish of all that like wide apart crosshatch that like Scott Williams would do. But I
Yes.
felt like he was showing those dudes like, yo, this is how you really do it. If you're gonna play around with all those lines and just uh, have veneer and artifice on your stuff, well, let me show you how to make a story in that kind of style. And that shit was fresh, man.
Wow. But yeah, I mean, that's great that you're able to talk to him and really, you know, tell him how much you loved his work. Wow, that is awesome.
Yeah, real cool.
Yeah. So, all right, Ed, I'm sorry. Let me just, I'm going to finish up my intro and then we'll just jump right in.
Oh
Okay.
snap, we didn't even get through the intro. Go ahead,
Yeah.
man.
No, don't worry, because the other thing too, I just want to do is that I before you start the interview, I want to give a big mahalo, a thank you in Hawaiian to Hannah Bahedri of Superfan Promotions for arranging this interview with Ed. Hannah, thank you very much for all your hard work. Thank you very much, Hannah. Ed, I'm going to ask, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I want to thank Hannah as well, man. She puts up with a lot because like on top of the monthly grind with the strips, like we're doing the publicity thing too.
Hmm.
And like I'm slow with my emails back to her sometimes and stuff.
Hmm.
So she's super patient. I'm really thankful.
Yeah, she's really nice because I know because sometimes my emails are a little slow with her. So yeah. So Hannah, thank you very much. Okay, so Ed, I'm gonna start off. So how are you doing today?
I'm doing well, man.
Hmm.
Just on that grind. We had free comic book day on Saturday,
Hmm.
so it was kind of fun dropping 80,000 free comics on people's heads. I recommend that all cartoonists do that at some point.
Hmm.
Go give away 80,000 comics one day. It's good career move.
Yeah. Okay. I'm just sorry. For free. I mean, I'm gonna ask. Were you at a local comic shop or anything like that when you did that, or?
Yeah, like there's a meme going around where it's like the left image is my plans for 2021, and then
Yes.
the right image is like, Delta variant, and it's some weird
Mm-hmm.
uh, you know, uh, bad piece of business on the right.
Mm-hmm.
We were maybe going to do a big tour, with my other free comic books. It's like, one time we did some West Coast stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Another time we went to Canada and hung out in Toronto. And it's always good to like go someplace fresh.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Pied Piper the work to an audience that doesn't get to see me every week, or doesn't essentially take you for granted, because like everybody here knows me and shit. But with all this like Delta variant stuff, man, I'm just staying home.
Okay.
I'm not traveling, man. I mean, I did go to a local shop. It was
Mm-hmm.
a great local shop called Phantom of the Attic, and it's a shop that's taken care of me since I was a little kid. Those guys were always very sweet to me, very nice. Were really impressed. I remember, like, I would give my parents a list for Christmas
Yes.
of what kind of comics I want for Christmas. And my parents, they clearly, like, they pop in the shop, like, clearly have no idea about anything.
Mm-hmm.
And when they see the list and they just take it to the clerk and pull all the books that I had on the list,
Mm-hmm.
they were like, we got to meet this kid, like, because it was like 11-year-old kid, like, interested in stuff ranging from vintage Kirby,
Mm-hmm.
like Simon Kirby era
Mm-hmm.
Kirby, to Cerebus, to Masamune Shiro's Appleseed,
Oh.
to Frank Miller's Sin City. It's like all this stuff, and it's like, how old's your kid?
Yeah.
11. And they're like, we got to see what that looks like, man.
Uh-huh.
So from that point forward, like, I really got to know those people, and they've always taken good care of me. So that's my go-to shop in Pittsburgh to do signings and things. It was good. It was good. Definitely not like usual Free Comic Book Day. I would honestly say it was about 1/5 of the foot traffic, and that probably has to do with the variant. It
Yes.
probably has to do with vacation time.
Yeah.
I think that some people, like, no matter how much they try to promote it,
Mm-hmm.
they just didn't know that Free Comic Book Day was going down in August. And there was another big festival happening in town too.
Mm-hmm.
That festival definitely siphoned a lot of nerd
Mm-hmm.
energy. So it was good, but not the most voluminous Free Comic Book Day I've participated in.
Mm. I'm sorry to hear about that.
That's all good.
Yeah. Um, so like you said, you're 11, you give your list of your comic book list to your parents during Christmas time. Um, I'm going to ask you, how did you discover underground comics? And then can you describe to our to maybe our younger listeners and even to me about what underground comics are?
Okay, well, the way that I discovered them, it was one of the most profound weekends I've ever had in my entire life,
Hmm.
because it was a 1-2 punch of illumination, I guess we could call it, man.
Hmm.
So on Friday, there was I'm just breezing through the channels, sort of late at night,
Hmm.
and this is an era in the early 90s where one could not take for granted seeing a Marvel character on a TV screen, right? Like
Yes.
nowadays, it's like nothing.
Yes.
There's probably multiple things on multiple channels,
Hmm.
but you just could not take this for granted then. And I was already a comic head,
Hmm.
uh, pretty much just buying stuff that I got at either flea markets or the grocery store.
Hmm.
So I'm flicking through the stations, and on A&E, I see Spider-Man's face real big,
Hmm.
and stop on a dime, man. And what I'm witnessing is the documentary called Comic Book Confidential.
Hmm.
Came out, I think, about 1988 is when it was constructed. And where I stopped from channel surfing was the Stan Lee portion of that documentary, where he's talking about the creation of Marvel and the birth of Marvel Comics, and his involvement in that. Well, directly after that piece, like, the whole world of comics opens up, because it's Robert Crumb who's the very, very next dude talking on this thing, man.
Hmm.
And he's talking about being high on LSD and all this kind of stuff, and sex, and
Hmm.
words are getting bleeped out because he says the F word 1 or 2 times.
Hmm.
and the imagery that you see is like, you see camel toes and
Yes.
all kinds of just weird stuff, man, because he's talking about how, like, when those underground started, like the first thing they had to do was just kind of objectify or represent every single taboo that they could think of. And they
Yes.
showed little examples of that, man. And then from there, it goes to like Victor Moscoso, it goes to Gilbert Shelton, Fabulous Furry Freak Brothers. And then it just keeps going on and on. Charles Burns, Linda Berry, Jaime Hernandez, Harvey Piskor, my dude. And then it ends with Frank Miller. So I see all this stuff, and I'm seeing all of this comic material that I never even heard of, man. I only knew about the stuff that's in a grocery store, that blew my mind. It really excited me. I was already a comic head, and it crossed my mind to go to the library and just see what kind of books about comics they had. I was a frequent patron of my local Homestead library, would get books all the time. And for some reason, it never occurred to me to look in the 700s, man, at the comic book
sections, right?
Yeah. And I did that, at the next day, Saturday, and pulled out a book called Comics with an X by Les Daniels. And that just furthered the exact, like, all this stuff was introduced to me, like Harvey Kurtzman, the birth of the comic, Simon Kirby, all that stuff was introduced to me in the documentary because I watched it on a rerun that night. And I grabbed that Comics by Les Daniels, and it just furthers that education and gives me print examples of all the stuff that I saw in that documentary. So there's a healthy section of underground stuff. There's full Fabulous Furry Freak Brothers stories to read. There's, I think, the complete Zap number 0 is in there. So, that's a heck of an education in like a 2-day span. And then I guess to answer your question about the undergrounds, like I don't know that answer, because there was a very specific movement of underground comics that had to do with distribution, and this would be the Zap comics and the Ju Funnies and things like this that didn't have the distribution channels of the newsstand like the typical comics, but they kind of proliferated by way of the head shops that were already dealing in like psychedelic posters and that kind of stuff. So like those same distributors who already had warehouses and models set up to, supply, blacklight posters and shit to all these little shops, they just added a section to their catalog so that they could hustle these undergrounds. So, when you say underground like that, like that's a very, I think about that specific point in time. But then there are these things where like they would call Harvey Piskor underground cartoonist, underground writer, and the books that I did with him were for major New York publishers. So it's like, how underground is that? It's like the same publisher who published the Da Vinci Code published our book. Like, is that underground? Like, I don't quite think so. But I do think that the modern underground is a fun space, and there are things that I think of that fit that bill, like Jason Karn's Fuckator comics that he prints up all by himself on an inkjet, like a bubble jet printer. So he wastes tons of toner and binds these things, and there can't be more than just a couple hundred of them, and they're extremely sublime and really kind of a bastard stepchild of those undergrounds. So like those are cool, and there's real interesting stuff happening now, just like people xeroxing mini comics and things. So is that underground? Like that probably fits the more mainstream definition of like what underground means.
But yeah, because Ed, because when I think about underground comics, before we started the interview, I talked about like, because because all I saw at comic book shops it was always Marvel and DC, and and these underground comics, and it basically was like drug use, sex, and it wasn't just like, oh, someone getting out of the bed. It's like nudity in there, and so forth. It was always behind the counter, and then like you said, nowadays it's um, because there right now there's like a kind of like a modernized. Correct me if I'm wrong, but now there's sort of like almost like another modernized, modern day underground comic movement because like Image can like nowadays like most you can pick up any comic and you will have nudity in there, drug use, but there's also today again another like underground comic movement. Is that correct? Am I getting that wrong?
Well, I don't know about that. Like, just because there's nudity or drug use or something in a comic, that doesn't make it an underground comic. And in fact, I would say that those things that were like drug use or sexual content,
Mhm.
that's just the medium growing up. Because guess what? People have sex and people do drugs,
Mhm.
and because of the chilling effect of the comics code that kind of prevented any kind
Mhm.
of like adult growth in the medium for
Yeah.
like 3 decades,
Mhm.
the medium has just kind of caught up to real life in a
Mhm.
way. Like these are things that people do,
Yes.
so that doesn't make it an underground thing. If there was an underground movement, like I pray for there to be an underground movement because I want to see chaos in comics. Like I want
Mhm.
to see people express crazy ideas
Mhm.
that will get them, shunned from the community or something like that, man. Like, people are pretty soft these days.
Mhm.
Uh, Kool-Aid pumping through their veins. Like let me see some modern rabble rouser who's
Uh-huh.
willing, who has nothing to lose and
Yeah.
is willing to put some crazy shit out there,
Mm.
like I would check that out.
Okay, I'm going to say that's a perfect segue to go into your comic book series, Red Room. Now, I'm going to ask you, what is the premise of this story?
It's Red Room. It's kind of like if you ever hear that term, story engine. And the story engine is that I'm constructing a universe where this urban legend of Red Rooms exists. And
Mhm.
what that is, it's the idea that on the dark web, which is largely anonymous and untraceable,
Mhm.
there are these streaming webcam chat rooms
Mhm.
where murders are performed for kind of like, high echelon patrons who could afford to participate.
Yes.
They pledge donations in the form of cryptocurrency, which can be laundered and can be hard to trace compared to traditional, US legal tender. So
Mhm.
there's this like anonymous subculture of murder on the dark web for fun and profit. And that is the basic engine that my comics are made. And every single issue is completely self-contained, and we're looking at that problem from different angles.
Mhm.
So one issue might be following around, say, one of the murderers, one of the enactors of this bad stuff, and see what a day in the life of that person is like. There might be an issue that's about the victim. There might be an issue about the kind of person who would patronize such a disgusting
Mhm.
thing. And that's the basic idea, but every issue completely self-contained. So if somebody, sees a random issue out there, grab it, buy it, give it a shot, you'll get a complete experience. And if you dig it, you see where I'm going, grab another. The cool thing about it is that it is a world building exercise also. So I don't divorce myself from the parameters that I set up in other issues to
Mhm.
create like a rich world. And sometimes characters will interact between issues and things,
Mhm.
but you'll get a full meal every issue.
Yeah. No, and I've read all three issues, and I'm going to say to our listeners, if you can still find issue number one on the stands, pick it up. I mean, it's that first issue is like a double-sized issue, and it's very
Yeah,
good.
yeah, triple size if you go by today's kind of jobber comics. Because if a Marvel comic is 20 pages,
Mhm.
this thing is 62, 64 pages.
Yeah, and it's very, like I said, it's very good. It sucks you in. It really does. Um, how did you come up with this story, and how much research did you do for it?
Mm, I'm not sure like when I came up with it exactly.
Uh-huh.
It evolved in many different ways, and I was actually going to start really working on it after the last volume of Hip Hop Family Tree that I put out in like 2015 or
Mhm.
2016. But I just took a detour through Marvel Comics
Mhm.
because because they, gave me the opportunity to make whatever kind of X-Men comic I felt like making. So I had to take them up on that offer.
Yes. Oh, yes.
And the idea for Red Room, I kept accumulating notes and information, kept reading books, kept reading basically every article that I could find about the subject, about the people who basically screw up and get captured, using the dark net, which it could be very upsetting stuff. It's like on one hand, it's guys like Ross Ulbricht, the dude who ran the Silk Road website that was like a black market,
Mm-hmm.
Amazon kind of website or eBay kind of website.
Mm-hmm.
And then there are like, human traffickers and shit like that who do weird stuff and get caught. So you read about that kind of thing and any books on the subject. So there's good books like American Kingpin about that Ross Ulbricht Silk Road guy.
Mm-hmm.
Just all this kind of stuff was in the back of my mind. And the comic kind of changed over that, say, 5 years that I was working on other stuff, where it was maybe going to be like procedural, like where I'm following around, law enforcement guys.
Yes.
And then it was going to be like theater of the mind, where you never see anything gross or gory. It's just like thought stuff.
Yeah.
And on both accounts, I was like, F that shit, man.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it'd be fun to draw some crazy gore stuff, like
Yes.
probably learn a lot about anatomy in the process.
Mm-hmm.
And the procedural kind of cop stuff,
Yes.
not really interested, man, because frankly, you can't glean any good information about how they capture people, like they keep that stuff a close secret.
Mm-hmm.
So in my comics, like law enforcement is a kind of a invisible specter that hangs over the heads of everybody, but there will never be, I doubt that there will ever be an issue that's from like law enforcement perspective, because I just kind of don't care about that part.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. And then some of your characters that you come up with, Mistress Pentagram, Poker Face. How did you come up with these characters? And were they based on any, are they riffs on any villains or anything like that?
They're not riffs on any villains or anything like this, but while I was designing these characters, one thought that I kept in mind was that I want the costumes to be kind of as easy to make, like with real world, appliances and stuff as possible, because these are just people who are doing this stuff. I needed to make sure that you don't see one piece of skin, because I would imagine that somebody who's doing such vile stuff, like they don't even want the FBI to know their ethnicity. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And furthermore, maybe Mistress Pentagram isn't even female. Maybe that's a ruse too. Like you don't know. Like I don't know. But that's kept a secret, because you just don't want to help the feds out in any way. So one of my secret fantasies of like designing these characters and using kind of like simple materials to create their costumes and stuff is I want to see a bunch of my Red Room villains walking around comic conventions whenever those things are in full effect. I want to see 5 poker faces at Maui Comic-Con or something.
Yes. Because I know in some of the in the 3 issues that are out, because you've had like now correct me if I'm wrong, you've had some of your fans sending their sketches, right? Their drawings of the characters, correct?
Yeah, for sure. All kinds of stuff, man. Tattoos.
Yes, yeah.
There've been tattoos. There's been several cosplays. There's been sculptures. There's been toys, and boatloads of artwork. Like I have about an 8-page piece in the back of most issues called the Gore Gallery, where it's an opportunity for people to draw the characters, man, and get their stuff in print.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Now I know, like in issue number 1 in the back matter, you wrote that that you were listening to Stephen King's Dance Macabre. And then, now correct me if I'm wrong, because was that's like a Stephen King nonfiction book, right? That he was talking about uh, how he started to come up with certain ideas of horror, of what media or things around at that are happening at during his time period. Is that correct, or am I wrong on that?
Yeah, you're pretty much correct. It's a nonfiction book for sure,
Hmm.
and he basically goes through every form of media, from radio shows to TV shows to feature film,
Hmm.
novels, short stories, uh, all kinds of stuff, and is basically laying out his major influences and discussing what made those things resonate at the time with which they were created.
Hmm.
And you go through that book, and there's some very specific patterns that one can draw from, like, all the major works that he talks about. And one
Hmm.
of those things would be that when these books come out, they just resonate with popular horrors of that moment.
Yeah.
Think of something as simple as Godzilla,
Hmm.
and the post-atomic age
Yes.
atom bomb droppings in
Hmm.
Hiroshima and Nagasaki, like
Hmm.
things like that. And the book is just rife with drawing those connections.
Hmm. Yeah.
So it led me to think, like, well, what would a good modern horror be? With new stuff that's out there in the
Yes.
universe
Hmm.
that wasn't there even a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
And the idea of giving people pure anonymity,
Hmm.
you just know that there's going to be a subsection of people who use that for ill will.
Hmm. Yeah. Um, because and the reason why I start to talk about that, because my next question is, and I know you've answered it already. So basically, like, is like the Red Room like kind of a social commentary about the internet and how society is today?
I don't go into it with a conscious theme, because
Okay.
I'm just a regular dude, man. So I don't want to risk being pretentious with my comics. Like, I'm making fun visual pot
Hmm.
boilers, but there with the comics, there seems to be a pattern developing uh, with the way the stories are built and constructed, and there are things that I'm seeing after the fact, but I'm going in with no conscious
Hmm.
themes or ideas or commentaries or anything like that.
Hmm.
But what I do see sort of bubbling up is uh, there's, it's the fact that, you know, people who can get away with murder will. Uh, it's a commentary on, like, the 1% and how they can basically, uh, you know, do whatever they want without getting into trouble. It's about secrets.
Hmm.
It's about dark secrets.
Hmm.
And as I continue to put together these issues, I think more things are gonna show up. But there's definitely a piece about just the internet in general, and the sort of cloak of anonymity and what it provides to people, and how it can kind of go off the rails,
Yes. Hmm.
um, which is actually a kind of like Windows 95 kind of idea in a way, man, because now the people who have, like, say, Twitter accounts or something,
Yeah.
they're saying stuff using their real names and shit
Hmm.
that would have been said by anonymous people in 1995. But nowadays people just, like, don't care, and they'll risk getting fired or being blackballed or whatever,
Hmm.
and just put stuff out there without thinking.
That I never thought of. That's an interesting point. That really is. Um, as I mentioned to you before the interview, like, I've read the first three issues. I'm going to say that, this comic does resonate with me because, it to me, and like I said, to me, it resonates with me because it's about the internet, and it's like what we watch, everything from Twitch. I'm not on Twitch or anything, but it just sounds like, if a gamer goes, hey, if I do this, if someone gives me $1, I'll do this or something like that. To even seeing literally, I mean, we're seeing like minor surgery procedures like Dr. Pimple Popper on her YouTube channel, you
Yeah.
know, and because these kinds of things we would never, it would always be like on so like some medical documentary or something, but now it's like it's almost like, and I'm not singling out Dr. Pimple Popper. There's a bunch of other doctors, but it's almost like every day or every other day they're always posting videos of, hey, see this huge, lipoma I'm pulling out of this guy's arm, and they show everything basically, and that's pretty wild. Um,
There's lots of stuff, man. Like I guess voyeurism is probably a part of the comic as well. And also, like, in 2020, a lot of people had to kind of like shuffle around and figure out ways to make money and stuff. And
yeah.
there like a lot of people found working online as kind of successful opportunity, and that showed up in many different ways, from Twitch
Mm-hmm.
to doing YouTube
Mm-hmm.
to stuff like it's like OnlyFans or whatever, like that kind of stuff. Like, so this is like a hyperbolic version of being a Twitch guy and getting $1 to drink a water or whatever the heck they do over there.
Mm-hmm. I'm sorry, I'm going a little bit off the cuff. The first issue of Red Room, what I loved about it was some of the characters in there. Like, I think you have, correct me if I'm wrong, was it a district attorney? That he's like on the Red Room. Like, you would, it's, to me, it's kind of, I like when you did that, because then it's like, it shows that it's almost like you said, it's like the deep dark secrets of normal people that not only do, that participate, like do those actual gory murders, but you have people that watch it too, which is kind of interesting, which it's like that's pretty, not pretty interesting, but that was kind of something that resonates with me.
Yeah, like some of the most fascinating parts of the comic are like the people who would watch that stuff. So filling out, the chat rooms
Mm-hmm.
whenever something's going down is a really fun thing to write. And the people who would be able to afford entry into even being in an actual room,
Mm-hmm.
they're pretty elite in when it comes to economic stratum. So I needed to show it. And he was just a defense attorney, like one of those blood in the mouth
Mm-hmm.
Robert Shapiro, Johnny Cochran type guys. But he also kind of like works with Red Room people. And my thought with him is that because he's a defense attorney, like he almost like
Mm-hmm.
always like does pro bono
Mm-hmm.
for any kind of like Red Room case, so that he could see the case files and
That's right.
uh, all of the materials that went into discovering and arresting people, so that he could pass that information on to the actual Red Room owners, so
Mm-hmm.
that they can catch any security holes or whatever. You
Yeah.
got to really like think deep about the conspiracy. Like when you deal with something like this, you have to think deep about how the conspiracy could possibly work and try to like imagine all angles.
Yeah, it's that's the thing I loved about um the Red Room. It really, it's it's they it's yeah, it's very, to me it's like, I'm hoping I'm saying the right word, it's very intricate. um and I'm sorry, I'm kind of going off the cuff, but one of the other things I love about the Red Room was when Mistress Pentagram, and she captures, Sergeant Slaughter. I can't
Yeah,
remember.
Major Slaughter.
Major Slaughter, and the the thing that kind of hooked me to her was, she's going, I know you have a daughter, don't worry, we're not going to threaten you or any, we're not going to threaten. It was just like she laid out all, we're not going to do this, but this is what we want you to do. It was just like, it was very well thought out, and that was the thing, that the dialogue just kept me going, and it was, like I said, just in simple words, I thought it was very interesting, and it's just like, wow, this is well thought out. So okay, um, I saw one Easter egg in issue 1 that I thought was really cool was um, Cannibal Holocaust, the VHS tape.
Right.
Now, I know, and I thought that was pretty cool that you put that in there because it kind of because I'm trying to remember because this VHS tape was like banned in so many countries. Literally, it was banned. For our listeners, this was banned in so many countries because of and it was just a movie, if I remember correctly. It was only a movie, but it was banned in so many countries. It was a VHS tape, and then also too, it's like I also love the commentary part of that back then in the like the late 80s, that was like um you know that was like I guess sort of a, a different version of voyeurism of seeing you know um like murderous acts and so forth like that. And I also thought that was really interesting that that back then people just whoever loved these types of things enjoyed it in their privacy of their own home. It would just only be them watching it on a videotape or maybe a group of friends. But nowadays it's like with the Red Room, um, it kind of opens up to show that it's not it's no longer a privacy thing anymore. It's like people around the world can chime in and so forth. I just thought that was very interesting.
Yeah, it was because it was banned and never received like a proper VHS release, as far as I know. Like the only time I ever saw it, and the copy, like no two copies look the same. Like if you know somebody who has it, like
Mhm.
their cover looks different than yours probably. And like you had to go to the bootleg table at the comic conventions to get that kind of stuff, and that was kind of like an underground thing.
Mhm.
And that was the only way to get like kind of a lot of movies. Like Eraserhead didn't have any real VHS tape
Oh,
at a certain point.
yeah.
Wild Style didn't have like a proper VHS until like the 2000s or something, whenever
Mhm.
VHS was done. So like there would be these like bootleg sections, and the guys who made Wild Style, they were the ones who made the bootleg. It's just like they made the movie before VHS was popular, and they didn't never made a deal, like
Yeah.
for anticipating some kind of future media.
Mhm.
Um, so like the Cannibal Holocaust thing was very specific because it was like that was a former version of that underground kind of culture,
Yes.
and it is just a feature film. I mean they absolutely destroy animals
Mhm.
for real in that flick,
Mhm.
and which makes it banned and gross.
Mhm.
But it's also legendary in that way where they had to present the actors in court because to sort of prove that it wasn't they didn't capture snuff on film or something.
Yes. Mhm. Um, Also too, I'm just gonna and the other thing too, I also loved about, and I'm going off the cuff, the first issue of Red Room. I remember that you kind of went over like sort of the history of, you know, again, it's according to the times, like that like murder movies were made in, I don't know, the 50s or something. Then snuff films came along, and now we have so I just thought that was a nice, you did a 2-page panel of just how the history of all this has, the media of it has come from.
Yeah, like something like that you put in there in case if I want to do like issue 4
Hmm.
is going to be about kind of like the VHS era of Red Rooms.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah. So it was my opportunity to draw VCRs and old cathode ray tube televisions with UHF dials and stuff.
Oh, that's going to be pretty cool. Um, and then I'm going to say for our listeners, and also too, is that, um, you know, um, even like mainstream movies have covered, and even some comics too have talked about snuff films. Like if I remember correctly, I think the Nicolas Cage movie 8 Millimeter did that. I think I know George David. Peter David and George Perez, Sasha Violins, their issue number 1, they covered a little bit about that too. So it's also, in comics as well, back then in comics as well too, that they talked about this stuff. Let's see. I love the play on the cover that that Red Room, on the covers of Red Room, that the comics are banned from, first issues, like the comic is banned in 5 countries. The I think issue number 3, the comic is banned in 13 countries. I really love that, because it's kind of like, because it's like nowadays, like to me, it's kind of ironic, because nowadays pretty much almost can get anything off the internet nowadays.
Yeah. Yeah, that's for sure, man. Like growing up, you might have had Faces of Death or something, and now, like, and on any given day, there's a new cartel video that's floating around on Twitter or something.
I know, yeah, it's crazy. Okay, so I'm joking on this part. So when you do issue 12, are you going to put on the cover ban on the planet Earth?
Well, it depends how many countries are going to ban it, man. We got to see. We got to see what happens.
Okay. Let's see. I'm going to ask, so was Fantagraphics your choice to publish this series? Was it your first choice to go with them to publish this series?
Yeah, like the way that I work is, I put feelers out, and I want to see, like, if you get multiple publishers interested, then it becomes a matter of seeing, like, what else you can get in terms of production or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a very good history, Fantagraphics and I. We've
Mm-hmm.
done great business together.
Mm-hmm.
And they just offered the most stuff. And frankly, one of the most important pieces that they did offer was that free comic book day comic that just sort of came out, because that's a fantastic business card for somebody to have.
Yes.
Like it's a great entry point into a comic series. Almost nobody really puts a lot of effort into those, because the big publishers will just put sample pages of their forthcoming series or something like that. So there's a real opportunity to shine there. So, like when I sign a contract and I work with a publisher, I'm not necessarily going to just like, stick with them forever. It's like, we've made a deal, like, let's make good on the deal. And then if we keep going and shit is cool, then we keep going and shit is cool. But, if somebody comes along and offers the universe, like, I'm going to go take that.
Yeah. Okay. I think when you pitched this to Fantagraphics, can I just ask, what was their reaction when you pitched this to them?
Yeah, like, I set certain personal precedents with, Gary and Eric over at Fantagraphics whenever I did, like, the mini comic that came with the box set for Hip Hop Family Tree, where I'm like drawing in Rob Liefeld style and stuff. And I may be paraphrasing, but if I dig up the email that Gary sent me when I showed him the full book, it was something like, Ed, what the fuck am I publishing here? And I just said, trust me, man, like, people are going to like it. And, same goes for this, like it is not like I'm keeping them honest, man, to the average bear, to the streets, man, keeping them, Pittsburgh people will love this shit. It's keeping them grounded. You know what I'm saying, man? Because, like, Gary's the man. He has very high ambitions for the comics medium, and so do I.
Yes.
But I also like to luxuriate in vulgarity every now and then.
Okay. Let's see. The other thing I wanted to ask was about, has Fantagraphics or even you gone, you've done the work, you've done the panels and everything. Have either you or they gone, well, Ed, I think you've gone too far, or Ed, or you go, I think I went too far on this?
I mean, I have my own personal sort of lines and stuff. But they totally respect the artist. another big reason I went with Fantagraphics is because they are probably the only publisher that can separate art from the artist. You
Mm,
know, like certainly in this universe that we live in now,
mhm,
I don't see very many publishers supporting their cartoonists whenever something goes down. You know,
mhm,
and Fantagraphics publishes Robert Crumb comics. Fantagraphics publishes comics made by Robert Crumb, and Fantagraphics publishes comics made by people who talk shit on Robert Crumb.
mhm,
So that's a very cool equal opportunity capitalist that Uncle Gary is. You know what I'm saying?
mhm. I'm gonna ask you. I know there are a couple artists that have done varying covers for you. I'm gonna ask. Do you want to just give a shout out to them or any of them?
Yeah, absolutely, man. Peach Momoko, Jeff Darrow, Troy Nixie, Takashi Okazaki,
Hmm.
and my man Jim Rugg did a variant for every issue,
Hmm.
and that helped goose the numbers. I'm very thankful for these people, and frankly, like I'm gonna have to take Jim out for dinner probably, man, because those covers he makes are so sexy.
Hmm. And then correct me if I'm wrong. This is an off the cuff question. Correct me if I'm wrong. Issue number 3. Didn't Jim do like a Teenage Ninja Mutant Ninja cover? Was it him?
Yeah,
Is it, I saw that in the back issue of uh, issue number 3, and I was like, that looks pretty cool.
yeah, man.
All right. Let's see. So um, I'm going to continue on. Let's see. As I mentioned at the beginning of the interview, that the comic is in black and white, and I know on the Cartoonist Kayfabe YouTube channel, YouTube the YouTube channel that you and Jim you know do YouTube episodes. You talk about something about duotones. In your Red Room #1 director's commentary. Um, I'm not an artist, but may I ask, can you maybe just describe to our listeners, what is a duotone?
Yes, it's an old archaic tool
Mm-hmm,
for making black and white illustrations. And what it is, it's a treated piece of paper where there are these invisible lines that are in like a very light blue when you buy a piece of this stuff, and they go parallel with each other, and then there's like a crisscross pattern. So there's two sets of lines going in two separate directions, and then you buy these chemical developers, and one of the chemicals will reproduce like one set of lines to give you a light gray tone,
mm-hmm,
and you use the other chemical to develop both lines to give you a darker gray, so that gives you a little extra value in your palette.
mm-hmm,
And there are great examples you could find in the history of comics. Notably, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle comics from Mirage Studios would employ that technique a lot. We cover a lot of comics that use that. Faust Comics would use it. The
mm-hmm,
Crow would use it. James O'Barr, Dragon Chang, one of our personal favorites, man, Tim Truman and Tim Bradstreet. When Tim Bradstreet was doing stuff before he was doing like color covers,
mm-hmm,
all of his black and white illustrations would be on duotone board. And it's a really cool aesthetic. It's an aesthetic that I really liked growing up. I was really mystified by it.
mm-hmm,
And it just so happens that now this is a tool that's been extinct for 25 or 30 years at this point.
mm-hmm,
And I just so happened to like come across some paper that
mm-hmm,
was undeveloped. So instead of drawing comic pages on that paper,
mm-hmm.
I developed the full sheets so that I could scan in the texture and just use it infinitely.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's how those gray tones are achieved in Red Room.
Mhm. Because it's like, I love it. It's beautiful art. It really is. I love it. It's, like I said, it's like when I read through it, it's really great, and I love it. Um, Now, also, I know, in the Cartoonist Kayfabe, one of the episodes, someone, I think someone, now correct me if I'm wrong, someone sent you like a bootleg copy of Red Room #1, and wasn't it like on like heavy paper or something like that?
Well, I mean, I've received maybe 5
Okay.
bootlegs. So, you know, of many different shapes and sizes and materials and
Mhm.
stuff.
Yeah, because I'm just asking, have you toyed around with the idea of like reprinting Red Room on some of those papers? I know it's probably going to be expensive, but maybe like a limited copy or anything.
No, nothing like that, but in the trade paperback, we're using some different paper, kind of like a matte paper.
Oh, okay, that's pretty cool. Okay, all right. Um, I'm going to switch gears because there are some humor in the Red Room. Um, the participants' handles. Um, Shaken flag.
Yeah, there's lots. Basically, when I'm writing those parts,
Mhm.
the the nom de plumes, the usernames or whatever,
Yeah.
that those are just stream of consciousness
Mhm.
names that like whatever I did that day or saw before I wrote that name,
Mhm.
uh, kind of injects itself into the comic. So it's quite possible that the day that I wrote that was
Mhm.
the day that we did a shoot interview with Howard Chaykin for Cartoonist Kayfabe or something, or read American Flag issue 1 or something.
And then for our new listeners, Howard Chaykin, he wrote American Flag. Oh God, I think was it back in the '80s or something? I can't remember.
Yeah,
Yeah. Um, and I also love this other handle too, K Eastman.
same deal, man. Like we might have interviewed Kevin Eastman that day.
Okay, and then one last question regarding the Red Room. Now, in issue 1, now this is the question that I'm keeping you in suspense. How do you get banned from the Red Room?
So yeah, you saw like some of the characters got banned and stuff.
Yes,
And if
like
and if
that.
you yeah,
I'm
and
sorry.
if you pay close attention, the people who get banned from the red rooms are people who talk about like rival red room companies. So like it's a guy in a Mistress Pentagram red room,
Hmm.
and they're talking about how Poker Face is cooler or
Hmm.
something like that. So it's like boom, banned, man. We don't even want to hear that word in
Okay.
our chat room, man. Like we want no advertising for the competition.
Hmm.
But that like that said, there are like one of the fun things that I like writing is what's happening on the video screen is atrocious. It's terrible.
Hmm.
And the people in the chat room might be talking about where they're going on vacation for the summer or something, like what's the best restaurant to eat
Hmm.
at, or they might also be commenting on the video and saying gross things, but there might be like one person that takes it too far by way of the consensus, like everybody's talking gross and disgusting, and then like one person will say something where everybody else who was saying gross things
Yes.
is like, hey man, pump the brakes, like chill the hell out, when something super gross and disgusting is
Yeah.
happening on screen and they're talking gross things. I just like that there's like, even amongst, like, no honor amongst thieves, right? Like
Hmm.
even in their little room,
Hmm.
a person can go too far.
So, listeners, if you do pick up Red Room, um, you know that's the I read those. Those are it's pretty. It's that's what I really read, and some of it is pretty funny, and you know yeah, like you said, it's like, yeah, there's no honor among thieves, where they're like, yeah, this is cool, and someone takes it too far. It's like, whoa, dude.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to move on to Cartoonist Kayfabe YouTube channel. Now, you and Jim Rugg started this channel in 2018. Um, for some of our new listeners, what is the channel about?
It's us talking comics.
Mhm.
We have 40-45 years of experience combined in this game, and it's just a project that we make where we discuss the comics that we dig. We always were interested in and would kind of like read similar things and then talk about it and discuss it.
Mm-hmm.
So this is us just recording it and sharing it with everybody. And like one of the real fun kind of comments that we get often is from people who say things like, I feel like I'm in the room with my homies talking comics.
Mm-hmm.
And it's cool that we capture that vibe and are able to share it. And I think that that's like part of like what people dig about the channel.
Mm-hmm.
A really cool community is developed out of it. People have made amazing comic book anthologies.
Mm-hmm.
Creative teams have met one another
Oh,
kind of in the comment
mm-hmm.
section. When we went to probably one of our last shows that we went to before COVID, we might have only had about 6,000 or 7,000 subscribers at that time. And when we went to the show, I mean, we saw like over 100 Cartoonist Kayfabe shirts rocking the house, like now we got like, 46,000 people. It's like, now I wonder how many shirts we'll see at the festival,
Yeah. For listeners, if you guys get a chance, please check out, this YouTube channel, Ed and Jim, Ed, what I love about it, because whatever, the 2 or 3 episodes that I've watched, your guys' passion and love for comics come through. That's what I really love, and it's always very upbeat, and it's just, again, the passion and love just comes through. When you guys when you guys go through comics, and it's great.
Yeah, well, we're real serious about the stuff, man. Like, we spend every other waking moment
Mm-hmm.
working on our comics, thinking about comics.
Mm-hmm.
The comics have overtaken our houses.
Mm-hmm.
And, when we step away from the drawing table for, a couple hours a day, like on a Thursday and connect,
Mm-hmm.
we spend that time talking about comics. We're giant freaking nerds.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so before I start wrapping up, I want to ask you this, and listeners, it is on the Cartoonist Kayfabe YouTube channel. Now, I'm hoping I'm pronouncing the artist's name, Tim Vigil. Is that correct? Okay, he's the, now correct me, was he the creator on Faust, or was he one of the co-creators?
Co-creator. It's Tim Vigil and David Quinn. David Quinn's the writer.
Okay, so how did you guys get Tim Vigil's Triple X, a copy of the Triple X Batman story?
Yeah, that thing's pretty cool, right?
Yes, it's well. Before we continue on, I want to make it clear for listeners. Now, when you guys are showing this, to me, I call it. This is a very legit, gritty Batman story. This is not some cheap shot Batman story, of Batman going down on Catwoman. It's like, no, it's, because like, I'll let you talk more about it, because you guys went through like page by page.
Right. Yeah, man. I mean, it's the Batman comic that to me makes the most sense for existing.
Yes.
If you really think about that character, and it's the comic that DC will never kind of approve. To answer your question up front, like we receive dozens of pieces of mail, every couple of days. And that just showed up as a random package from somebody who said, don't show this off because I didn't get approvals for it to be seen. I think it's supposed to be underground. Like nobody's supposed to really know about it. And then I sat on it for a long time until I realized I have Uncle Tim's phone number, man. I'm just going to ask him if I could show it off. And, he very specifically was like, yeah, go ahead. Don't just say that like I did it as practice. Like it's not for sale or anything like that. So that, the bitch ass, bean counters at DC don't, try to mess with the man. So, then we showed the thing off and just love the rigor that went into it. It feels very honest. I think what you said is perfect because it's very sincere comic.
Yes.
He's not really playing around. And listen, man, I think Joker would be a cokehead. Why not?
Yes. Yeah. Because because yeah, it's like, Tim's style of Batman, the pages that you guys shown is that Batman's he's always looked like he's in control. And I've read, we've both read a lot of Batman comics. I've never seen Batman more, controlled as ever. Even with how Tim drew Catwoman, but Batman's like, he's very focused, he's very controlled. And then the pages of the Joker, it's like, it's chaos fun. It's like, yes, you're right. It's like, Joker would be a cokehead. Joker would be, would just be, screwing around with any chick or any, and it's just the opposite, just to see the control versus the chaos, you know.
Yeah, they use that term grim and gritty
Yes.
in those post Dark Knight comics.
Mm-hmm.
And it's pretty toothless. It's just like, make this guy an alcoholic, or it's corny. And that's the closest to grim and gritty as I've ever seen
Mm-hmm.
in a superhero comic. And of course, it'll never be legitimately published or anything.
Yeah, But like I said, for listeners, if you guys get a chance, please check out Cartoonist Kayfabe YouTube channel. And if you guys get a chance, there is that one episode with the Triple X Batman story that Ed and Jim go over. So if you guys get a chance, check that out. Okay, so Ed, I'm going to start wrapping this up. What was your best comic book convention moment, either as a fan or as a creator?
That's a good question, man. I've had a lot of good ones.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe to circle things back, maybe that Amazing Houston con where I got to rap to Herb Trimpe
Mm-hmm.
might take the cake, man.
Okay.
I've had a lot of good moments. Almost every time there's something cool that goes down for sure.
All right. And then, do you want to promote any of your friends' comics?
Yeah, sure, man. Like my co-hosts at Cartoonist Kayfabe, Jim Rugg, Tom Scioli, like they're doing fly stuff. Scioli did a Jack Kirby bio comic that is incredible, drawn in pencil, which is the medium that Jack Kirby knew best. Jim is working on some secret stuff that he can't announce right this minute, but it's going to be super fun once the public does get to see it. I've read a couple pieces from it. Street Angel is his flagship comic. So yeah, that's the homies.
And then do you want to promote your social media platforms? Where can listeners and fans follow you?
Yeah, I'm on all the usual stuff, man. If you just Google Ed Piskor, that's usually the first batches of stuff to come up, man. Hit up Cartoonist Kayfabe. Ed Piskor's the name, so just Google it. You'll find the links.
Okay. And then do you have any last words for our listeners?
No, I just want to thank you for taking the time, helping me signal boost the comic and everything.
No, Ed, no, I'm going to say, just thank you very much. Thank you for your time. I wish you all the success for Red Room, and excuse me. And then Ed, like I said, again, I'm repeating myself again. Thank you for your time. Thank you for coming on our show. And then Hannah, again, thank you very much for arranging this interview. Again, Hannah, thank you. Hannah, you are the best. So I want to thank Drew, the co-host of Comics for Fun and Profit, for putting this episode together and for all your hard work behind the scenes. And please check out new episodes of Comics for Fun and Profit that comes out every Saturday. Kyle and Drew talk about spec picks on new releases. And finally, I want to thank you, the listeners, for your time and listening to this episode. Until next time, guys, aloha.
Super cool, man.